So hello everyone. My name is Jean-Baptiste Vincey and I'm an Android developer at Deezer. So for those who don't know, maybe Deezer is a streaming music platform based in France, but available about mostly everywhere in the world. And I want to introduce you just a bit more about Deezer to explain for you to understand the kind of choice we did about our design system. And so, just to make sure, I think there was a switch in the room. So, my talk is about design system, how and why we implemented it at Deezer. Okay. So, first of all, Deezer application is available on many platforms. So we also have desktop, but also mobile. It's quite obvious, but we also have application on TV, car, smartwatches, some speakers. So here we all have this entire ecosystem. And furthermore, we are nowadays working on a panel of different applications. So we have the main Deezer app, but we also have a radio app that is available actually in the UK, in Netherlands and Spain, and I think soon in Brazil. We have a 360 app that is made in collaboration with Sony. Sony did a specific audio format that is providing actually a kind of 3D experience for sound. And I think so our 360 application is launching, I think it should be next week. And we have also Backstage, which is an analytic tool for our providers, so but also artist managers, labels, to see the performance of their content on our platform. So we have all these platforms, all these applications with a different UI. And so one of the biggest challenge we have nowadays is to be able to provide, to develop new features, to update our user interface, and all this in a consistent manner. Okay? Especially since Deezer is already a long existing app. So I think the web application is there for more than 12 years. It was launched in 2007. The mobile applications for more than 10 years. It was in 2009. And just for you to understand, so we're still working on the same base code, okay? So that you can imagine a bit this kind of challenge for updating the user interface. Okay, so to better understand the issues we have, so we'll take a simple example. So let's say that I want to develop a new feature, so it will be kind of a new screen, a new page in my Android app. So it will display a list of tracks. Actually, that's quite often the case in a music streaming app. So let's focus on this track cell. So my first question is, okay, maybe there should be probably somewhere in the app already an existing component to display tracks. Okay, so a UI component. But where do I look for this? Okay, so maybe should I search, maybe in the code base, but you probably tried also yourself, and you saw that it's quite difficult to search for something that is only visual in the code base that is only by text, okay? So maybe another solution could be to search in the application. So maybe I go over and over in every feature, every screen of the application. Still, it's quite cumbersome, okay? It's quite difficult, and I might miss it. And even then, even if I find some existing features, existing pages that have a kind of a track UI component, there's still a high chance that it's slightly different from the one I need to integrate in my feature, in my mockup. And so what choice do I have in that case? So maybe since the other features maybe are not in my scope, because since we have a very big app, we're 20 developers only on the main Android app, so I don't want to touch the other features. So what can I do? Maybe I can create a new UI component just for my feature, but you can imagine that's a bad idea, because after a couple of years, maybe I will end up with 50 UI components for the tracks, and so that's quite impossible to maintain. Maybe I can, instead of creating a new component, I can create a state inside the existing component, so that I don't touch the, so I keep the display in the existing features, and I have my different display in my new feature. Okay, but it's kind of the same problem, actually. I will end up with about 50 states after 5 or 10 years, and it will be the same problem. And maybe the actual solution is to update and to make sure all the UI components for the track are the same in the application. The thing is, it should not be my decision to take as a developer. This should be rather a UX or UI designer or a product owner to decide how and when we should update our component in a consistent way, okay? So for this, we need something to help us. So we need some kind of process or framework, and that's where the design system comes into play, okay? So we decided to build a design system. So we will see what is a design system made of and composed of. So the most common definition is that it's made of 3 important things. And first of all is a style guide. And the style guide is so defining the text styles, but also the colors, everything that defines the look and feel of your brand, of your application. Okay, so this is really brand related. The second part of the design system is a component library. So that is basically where you put about everywhere, everything that you display in your application or your website in terms of component, that's where you put it, okay? So that in this way you will have somewhere to look for when you are searching for a specific component. And last part is a set of guidelines. And the guidelines are kind of rules defining how you stack up together your UI component from the component library. Okay? So, but with this, it's still rather abstract. We don't know exactly how to proceed to create our design system, especially the component library. So what we did is we looked around and we saw that Brad Frost actually created a methodology to build a robust design system. Okay, so that he called atomic design. And so the picture is from his, it's his picture the day his book was published, actually. And so in atomic design, the main idea is to stop considering our applications and websites as a set of pages and screens, but rather as a set of reusable UI components, okay? And so he proposed really a kind of hierarchical organization for the UI components. And he used a metaphor, so atomic design, so he got inspiration from chemistry to make kind of a comparison to explain how to divide and to split the UI component in different layers. So these layers are first atoms, then molecules, organisms, and for the last stages we have templates and pages, so he went back to a more usual metaphor with the publishing industry. Okay, so let's see what it looks like. So first layer is atoms. And so an atom is basically, so it's really the most basic building block of your user interface. that you cannot divide, you cannot split into smaller pieces, okay? So here we have a few examples from taken from the Deezer application. So we have some album cover, some title, play button, a label, a subtitle. So that's it. So that's really the most simplest one. Then we have molecules. And a molecule is made of different atoms. It's still kept really simple, but these atoms form together a functional unit, okay? So in this example, we took all the atoms from before, and it forms together, it represents an album card, okay? That can be displayed either in a grid or in a carousel, whatever, okay? Next stage is organisms. So organism is one step ahead with the more complex component that is made both of atoms and molecules. So here we have a carousel of albums representing the discography of an artist. This is displayed on an artist page. And you see how we reuse every time the atoms and molecules, so the components that are defined in the earliest stages. So what is important to understand is, for example, if I take the title and I want to change it in my interface, I want to change, let's say, the color, I change it at the atom level so that this way, everywhere it is used, it will be automatically impacting every molecule and every organism and every screens it is used in, okay? So, for example, this title is used in this molecule, but is also used in many molecules, and we have only one kind of title like this, okay? So that's the same for everything. So if we want to take a different, to remove some atoms or to change some stuff inside this molecule, it will be impacting everywhere this molecule is used. Okay, so now we have templates. So the template is kind of a blueprint of your interface organization. So it's really where you define the most complex building block of your pages. So here we have a simplified example of an artist page with a header, and the discography, and a similar artists displayed as carousel. And last layer is pages, and a page is kind of an instance of a template, but this time with real data and with real visual. Okay, so this is the final mockup, the final visual that will look exactly like in the final product. Okay, and so the idea behind this methodology is really to leverage and make sure we do reusable component at every level, okay? So now we will see how we did implement our design system in practice at Deezer. So first of all, we choose our own vocabulary. We were not so comfortable with the atomic metaphor, and we preferred another one, which is Lego, centered on the concept of bricks. And so the idea is really that you have many bricks that you can stack up together to form more complex building blocks that in the end form an entire page or screen. Okay, and actually this Lego metaphor is used a lot in the UI and UX area, and is also used by Brad Frost himself in his atomic design methodology. So we have our own vocabulary. Then we define the UI kit. So UI kit is just a name. This is our component library. And what is important to understand is that it's defined first on the design side, and there is an implementation of this UI kit on every platform, okay? So it exists both in the design part and implementation part, and in the platforms part, okay? So nowadays, the tools for designers allow them to create this kind of component library. So we used to work with Sketch, for example, and you have a built-in the Sketch application, a way to create a component library. And so after that, we used Zeppelin to actually share both the UI components from our UI kit and also the final mockups for the screen pages. And actually now we moved to a new tool that is called Figma. And what I like about Figma is that it's both used by the designers to create the components and the mockups themselves, but also it's the same tool to share with the developers, with anyone in the team, since it is web-based. So it's on the web application. The designers have a writing permission so that they can design, they can make the mockups, they can make the components. And we, as developers, for example, we also have access, but only with reading permission, so that we can see the component library, the UI kit, but also every mockup. And so we only have one tool to do that, compared to before, where we needed both Sketch to design and Zeppelin to share. Now, on the implementation part, so I will talk specifically on Android. So we created an Android library. It's in a separate project, a separate repository. And it has its own application that we call the Playground. And the Playground is kind of a showcase for the UI kit, where we display every UI component from the UI kit. Okay, and it should match actually exactly, and it should be displayed in the same way that it is displayed in the designer UI kit. Okay, so why did we do this in this separate project? So first of all, because we are working on several applications now. We're working with this panel of applications, and so this way, our UI kit is ready to use in every new application we're working on. And then this Playground application is extremely helpful for several reasons. First of all, since it is in a separate project that is very light, it's very small, it doesn't have much dependencies. It's extremely fast to build, and so that makes it very easy to iterate over and over when updating or when creating a new component. Sometimes the Android Studio preview is not enough. So with this small application, it makes it very easy to iterate, to display just specifically one UI component. Second part, it's nice to have this application in order to make to perform design reviews with the designers, also with the QA and with the product owners, to make sure that our implementation matches and is aligned with the designer UI kit, with the designer design system. And last part, it ensures and enforces a good architecture, since, as we will see a bit later, we like to really separate all the business logic from the presentation layer, from the display, since all our UI components and are in this separate project. It doesn't have any dependency to our business logic, so it's just impossible to mix things around. Okay, so this ensures a good separation of concern. Okay, so then we defined our style guide, so the colors, text styles. What is important there is that we should have a really defined names that are shared between designers and every implementation and every platform, okay? So that we make sure that we understand whenever we are working with a specific color or a textile or a text, it's important to have many meaningful names. So we will have some examples after. So now we come really to the implementation part on Android. And so on Android, we rely on recycler view. So basically, more or less in our system, every page would be based on a recycler view. And every UI component would be a brick. We'll see in the next slide what is composing a brick. And we have our implementation of recycler view adapter that we call the Lego adapter that handles every combination. So it displays the bricks, but it can display any combination of bricks, so in any order, any number. So you can have a brick that takes the whole screen. You can have any combination of any brick. And it will handles also the view updates, but also recycling and animation. So now for the atom layer, in our system, an atom is simply, it can be either an Android widget or a custom widget if we define some, bound with a specific style. So here we have an example of a text style defined in the style guide that we defined together with the designers. Okay, and so in our example here, our atom here, it's simply a title, will be simply a text view bound with this specific style. Okay. So now we're talking about the brick. We were talking earlier. So in our system, a brick is simply kind of a model for the view. So it embeds every data that we want to display in our brick, in our molecule. So let's say, let's take, for example, this artist card. We have, it's very simple. It's just an image and a title. And so in our brick, we just need a string for the title, a URL for the picture, and also an ID that will be used for the Lego adapter to identify specifically this brick. Okay, we just need a reference to the layout, and this will be based. This will be using data binding to bind the data to our actual view. So the corresponding layout is very simple. It looks like this. So here you clearly see how the atoms are composing the molecule with a text and image view. Okay, and we just rely on data binding to bind the data we saw before. So the title and the URL with our view. So I don't show here, but we have obviously some custom binding adapter to bind our data to the view. Okay, so next layer is organisms, and an organism is itself a brick, but it takes as data, so some data, for example, for the title here, so we'll have a title reference, a title resource, but also, since it integrates some molecules, it will take some brick itself as data. So here we have the similar artist carousel that is an organism. And so our carousel brick will receive the title reference and a list of bricks themselves that will be corresponding to the list of artists. And overall, our architecture will look like this. So this is based on MVVM. So basically, we fetch our data into an Android architecture view model. And what is important there is that we have there a transformer that transforms our business data, okay? So that can be artists, albums, whatever, into our UI data that are the bricks, okay? So data to brick transformer, okay? And the output is a list of bricks that I can send to the activities until the Lego adapter that will handle the display and the views updates. Okay, so the whole magic and the whole everything that is important in this when you create a new feature will be in this transformer. So we'll have a look of what it could look like. So this is a very simplified example, but so we have here an artist page. We'll just focus on the discography and similar artist carousels. Okay, so I have my transformer. I receive as data an artist that has itself a list of albums with the discography and a list of artists for the similar artists. And I use some sub-transformer to create my two carousels. And a sub-transformer will simply look like this, okay? So here I receive a list of artists and a title, and I just create my carousel brick like this, okay? So extremely simple, and what is nice is that since it doesn't imply any Android framework classes, it's really nice, easy to test, okay? That is where you will put everything about the logic of your feature. And so this way you can test about everything in your feature. So for example, if I want to display the discography only for premier users in this application, I can simply just do it here. Okay, so when I say it's very easy, it's very nice to create new features, it's not that easy to set up and to set in place. So first, so we have a few remaining challenges with our design system. And first thing is to set it up about everywhere in our application. We started the project about 2 years ago, and it's still not finished. So we haven't set it up everywhere in the application yet. Okay, so it's really a long process, especially since we have a 10 years old code base. But still we are getting very close. I think in about a few months we should have about 90% of the application covered with our design system. Okay. Second challenge is to keep the design and implementations on every platform of our UI kit aligned. Okay. So since we have many platforms, every time a component is updated in the UI kit in the design side, it takes some time to update it on every platform, and so it's still difficult to make sure we don't have inconsistencies between the different features, the different mockups we have, and so this is still something we're figuring out, maybe with some kind of versioning of or something like this. Okay. Another problem is to have a clear policy on when should you put a UI component in the design system or not. So for example, in some case, it might be relevant to keep a component outside of the design system because it's really, really specific to a feature or to an application that you don't want to share. But we still don't have a very clear policy on when we should put UI component, because sometimes we are kind of in a gray zone, or we are not sure if we should put a new component or not in the design system, because it's only used in one place for now, but it could be maybe later in other place or in other applications, and we don't know yet. And if we don't put it now in the application, maybe in the design system, sorry, maybe if we need something extremely similar in another application, for example in this 360 app, and the developers from this 360 app don't know about this component that is only in our application, then we lose the benefits of our design system. Okay. And last part is to convince and onboard everyone about this framework and this process. Okay. So I think now about everyone at Deezer is pretty convinced about all the benefits it brings. But we still have to onboard the newcomers. But when you want to set something, this kind of a system in a company, at first, when people don't know about it, it can be quite difficult. But still, it brings many benefits. So first of all, it ensures consistency, because when you put your component in the design system, you are making sure you are not redoing every time the same component, and you are using the same one in the entire application and in the different applications. It's ready to use in other apps, so it's making it easier to develop new applications. It's really easy to maintain and extend, and it supports this design evolution. So whenever we want to make a major update on the user interface, it's really easy, because we just have to update our UI kit, and we directly see the result already in the playground application, and it will be impacting the entire application without any loss very nicely. And last part is really, I think the most important one is that it really strengthens the collaboration between developers and designers. Since we are working the same way with the same process, we don't complain anymore about okay, I receive a mockup, but the UI component is slightly different from the existing component or whatever. No, we work together with the same system and the same process. Okay. And so I want to give you a few examples of major UI projects, so user interface updates we had recently. So last year we made sure to support right to left language on our main application on every screen. Second, we had a major update in the user interface, in the design, following a new logo and a new brand. Okay, so we had to change most of our UI component on our application. And last part is during this summer, we released the dark mode. And all these projects would not have been possible like in such short time without our design system set in place. Okay, so let's have just a sum up about what we saw today. We saw what is a design system and what it is composed of. So with the style guide, component library, and guidelines. We had an overview of atomic design methodology with the different layers. Okay, so atoms, molecules, organisms, and the last stages with templates and pages. And we had an overview of how we did our implementation on at Deezer. So with the vocabulary, a style guide, our component library, okay, our UI kit, design and implementation on Android, and we saw an example of implementation based on RecycleView and Lego bricks. Okay, so the idea is not to give you the right answer to especially about the implementation. It's just to show you how we did. It's not perfect. It's still to be improved. There are also, for sure, many other ways to integrate such design system. But this is for you to get some ideas about how you could also do in your company and on your application. Okay, I leave you some further readings. And the first one is really, I think, the most important one. This is the Atomic Design blog post. So it's available on the website, but also as a published book and an ebook. Okay, I'll put the slides also on Twitter so that you can find these quite easily. Okay, And I think we have some time for questions if you have, and otherwise, if you want to come to see me afterwards, I will be there until the end of the conference. Thank you. So do we have some questions, or is it crystal clear? Yes, we have.
Thank you for your speaking. I have a question about how you export styles from Figma to your application. Do you use Amazon style dictionary or some other plugins for Sketch?
So actually, we don't automatically export it. We re-implement it. But Figma gives us some snippet code. So it can give you in different language. So for example, it can give you in CSS, but also in Android styles. So we can just copy and paste some parts, but we're making sure. So we are kind of re-implementing by hand the style guide.
And small question: Figma support versioning for designs?
That's I'm not sure yet, and that is still something we're making. We have to figure out.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you again, and have a nice conference.